That's a pretty terrifying cracking sound in the flutes, isn't it? Our next tune is Heartland Heritage by David Goran. And this one is depicting the beauty of the open plains and traveling across the country as pioneers. And there's a moment here where you can really imagine what it must have been felt like traveling and being weary back in the days where you were traveling in wagons and on foot and on horses, and to go to bed exhausted in front of a campfire and wake up in the morning and see those spectacular mountains in the distance. And you'll be able to feel that. So that's what we're depicting, is that peace and that beauty of the plains and this amazing place where we are all lucky enough to live. This is Heartland Heritage. That tune was short and didn't seem hard, but that was really a difficult tune, and they just really hit it out of the park. That was awesome. Before we move on to our next tune, I want to just advocate a little bit and thank Gabe and all the other directors, first of all, for having me on, and second, mainly for putting together an honor band. I find honor bands and orchestras and choirs to be really incredibly valuable events. And the reason why is because our kids are used to being competitive, right? With, especially in athletics, and the whole premise of that is to triumph over somebody else, right? You have one team playing another and one team wins, or one kid wins the race. But what I love about honor bands and honor orchestras is these kids come together and they all win. And they work together and they make new friends. I forgot to tell these guys this, but the bridesmaid in my wedding and my best friend to this day is a girl that I met sitting next to in an honor band. So you can really meet a lot of people in really such a positive and wonderful way. I really think it's a great lesson. So thank you, Thompson, for putting this on. I really am grateful for that. The opportunity to thank any of the administrators at any of the 6 schools represented or at the district level. I'm sure that they would love to hear what an awesome event that this has been and how beneficial it has been for your students. Thank you to the directors for bringing kids to this who are so well prepared. They really clearly did a great job with the audition and selection process and preparing the students. I want to thank those directors, so if you guys could stand up and give and receive our thanks, that would be great. Thank you, parents, for buying reeds, for buying valve oil, for renting instruments, for buying instruments, for driving kids, oh, you have no idea, just wait till high school, to band events, and for supporting your kids in this awesome endeavor of music. I gave kids the lecture about continuing band in high school because it just gets better. It just gets so much better. Band is awesome in middle school, but it's even better in high school. And then you move on to college, and then that's when it gets really amazing. So keep those kids involved in band. Our next tune is Arabian Dances, and it's a celebration of the music that comes from the Iberian Peninsula and Persia. It's very flavorful and colorful. You'll hear at the beginning the dusk going down as nomads are settling down, as the heat of the day is burning off of the desert. And different groups of people are dancing around the fire, and they all come together at the very end for this really exciting finale. This is Arabian Dances. tune, and our last tune. I'm sorry that it goes so fast. But these guys have been amazing. I will tell you, we worked every minute that we had on this music, and they really, I know they were tired, but they muscled through. We had an awesome day. So let's give one more round of applause for this. Our last tune is kind of the heavy hitter, and one that the kids unanimously agreed should be the last one on the program, and it's called Moscow 1941. I'm just going to read about what the basis of this is in the words of the composer. This song identifies with an extremely important moment in history during the Second World War, in which the Red Army, against all odds, successfully defended Moscow against the German invasion. In October of 1941, German troops were only 15 miles outside of Moscow, an unfavorable situation for the Soviet Union. 2 million people had evacuated Moscow, but Joseph Stalin stayed to rally morale. In November, the Germans launched a new attack on Moscow. The Soviet army held their ground and brought the Germans to a halt. Stalin insisted on a counterattack, and although his commanders had doubts, they launched their own offensive on December 4th. The Germans, caught off guard and demoralized by the recent defeat, were pushed back and began retreating. By January, they had been pushed back nearly 200 miles. We spent a little time today talking about that part of the war and what was happening in that part of the world, because we tend to talk a lot about the Nazi influence of World War II and the Japanese influence of World War II, but we don't always talk about what was happening kind of east of Poland in that area and how the Russians were involved. And so we talked about some of the numbers and some of the sobering statistics of World War II. And in this, what you'll hear at the opening is a statement of a tune called Meadowlands, which is a tune sung often by the chorus of the Red Army, the Russian army. And it's very somber, and you'll hear that it sounds very desolate. And you'll hear us get into war. You'll actually hear the sound of bombs in the bass drum, and then shortly after that, you will hear the sound of triumph and victory. This is a very moving piece, and the kids have really bought into it. It's been a joy to work on this with them, so I hope you enjoy Moscow 1941.